Good morning. Today is Tuesday morning, May 26th. Hope everybody had a great holiday weekend. I am back with a podcast because I know I'm overdue and I hope everybody's been doing fine. I am back with a podcast now that I'm 36, what I'm sure about. And I like doing these podcasts, and it's probably time to do like a 6 month check in. So I'll try to get that in for June. But a couple things, mytaughtyou.com, the site is still happening, still have journals going. I ordered a bunch for everybody. So if you still haven't gotten it, I recommend getting one because this is definitely the last run that I'm going to do of these because I have an idea for another one. So scoop them up if you haven't. Great graduation gift. And even going to come back with a couple of different mugs as well. I went to Hawaii for my birthday. If you've never been to Hawaii, like I had never been, I recommend. It's definitely something that one of those trips that I'm glad I kind of had it on my bucket list. And I stayed Kapalua Bay. I think that's how you say it, Kapalua. I stayed at the Montage, which is a new hotel. In fact, they were celebrating their 1 year anniversary one of the nights that we were there. Um, they they built these places as sort of like condos, I think, like these, because this was like the most glamorous sort of place I had stayed in terms of it was like a home. So it had like dual dishwashers, like the everything was top notch. And so I guess they built these out to be lived in, but I'm not sure what happened. The Montage bought them. So I think it's something that you should definitely do with a boo, or if you've got some girls, like I was just saying, it is the ultimate girls trip because you can get a bunch of girls together, split the cost a bunch of different ways, and have an ultra glam vacation. Some of the highlights, if you are going, Mama's Fish House, which I went to on my birthday, which I absolutely loved. Lahaina Fish Company, I think was it? Lahaina Fish Co. Yeah, that was great. Pineapple Grill was amazing. The Road to Hana, which is a 12-hour sort of all-day excursion, which was really lovely for a day of downtime. I went on a Hula Girl Sunset Cruise. That was a lot of fun as well. Um, and I think that's it in terms of like things that I really, really loved. Anyway, on to what I'm sure about in terms of being 36. So every year I always do this thing where I look up sort of what the meaning from a numerical standpoint, numerology. My dad does not like that I do this, but whatever. I look up sort of like my age, the year approaching, and even when I get there to see sort of like what is the vibe of the year from a, numerically. It's fine if other people aren't into it, but I like doing it. So 36. Three, for anybody who's in their 30s, three is about optimism, joy, communication, expansion, and the principles of increase. So manifesting desires. And so I think that that's a lot of what 30s are about. You don't have to believe this. This is just what I choose to enjoy. Six. So I'm changing from 5 to 6. Qualities of unconditional love, service, humanitarianism, which is really awesome. I think that I have really started to move into more of a space of service, which is really exciting. And 36 together is the number of thought, word, action, using imagination and intellect to bring about desired results. So I couldn't be more excited. I definitely think that I'm on that path. If you ever have some time to look up your number, have some fun with it, tweet me. I'm saying text me. Tweet me, Instagram me, let me know, if you feel like there's anything of value there for you. But I'm going to get into my 5 points. 5 things that I'm absolutely sure about today, and I'm sure I'll go back and listen to this in another year or 2 or 3 and crack myself up. But look, that's what life's all about. Number one is about inner success versus outward success. And I think that we are in some of the hardest times right now because everything is so focused on outward success and everything is so focused on the number of likes and influence and all these things that are now being used to sort of give a person value, whether it's real or perceived. But it's like everything is so how do I look focused? Like, you can't even go anywhere without looking nice enough to take a great photo. I still think about like the kinds of outfits that you may be photographed in be it in photo shoots, because everybody's doing them now on your Instagram. It's like everything is so outward focused that I wonder if people will work on succeeding from the inside, And so I'm definitely sure that inner success or focusing on succeeding on the inside is definitely more important than the outside. And you really have to kind of just do away with what you think people think about you based on their perceptions, because that's the thing. It's their perception. It's not reality. And I'm going to talk about that in my next one. But um, everything that you see, even in my photo, is not necessarily my reality. It's your perception of what's going on in my life. And I was sitting here with my girlfriend yesterday, and she was just, we were talking about how people can look at your pictures or look at my pictures on Instagram and see, oh, you're on vacation, you're doing this, you have that, dot dot dot, and any of these girls socially, and assume that there's happiness associated with those things. And that is not necessarily the case. And so that's why sometimes I get a little bummed if I post something, a sharing thing, and people go off the deep end about, I'm so glad you found love, I'm so glad you're happy. And it's like, that's not what's happening here. But I know it's difficult for you to understand that, because from the outside looking in, it's like the appearance is having it all. But if you don't have true, genuine, authentic happiness, it is not having it all. They're just things. Even the things that you perceive as like successful things, achievement and all that does not still equal happiness. And so we'll continue to talk about that. But inner success. How did I focus on my inner success? How have I been focusing on my inner success, and how am I going to continue to? Healing my wounds. I think that's the most important. For the last several years, I've talked about this ad nauseum. You know how I am. 3 years I have been going to psychotherapy, really trying hard to address my wounds, address the things that I found to be an issue. And I get a lot of questions to my Ask FM about young women, I'm assuming, that are African American, that are in the workplace, and they're just like two things. Everybody's always asking me all my business, and another thing is that everybody says that, I've always have like a kind of a sour face or a bad attitude. And all that really says to me is that you need to address your wounds, because I mean, unless somebody's asking you, I think it starts to get really, really personal. Somebody's like asking you like what you did in bed last night. But if somebody's like, what'd you do over the weekend? Like, that's just conversation. I think a lot of us are confusing conversation with somebody trying to be in your business or be nosy or whatever. So it's like, address your wounds so you're not taking all of that personal. And so I talked about this in a podcast, how if you don't address your wounds, I imagine everybody's life, every time something bad happens to you, it piles up like a heap of trash, right? I imagine the trash as a pyramid, just as a pyramid in the pit of your gut. And if you don't address it, it's going to pile up. And the closer it gets to the top, the stinkier it gets, the badder your attitude is, the more you can't control rolling your eyes, right? And so when anybody says anything to you, it's always going to be perceived as an issue because you haven't addressed your wounds. And so over time, I've just taken the time to just get my pile of trash down low. It's not gone, but I've definitely gotten it under control so that I don't have this stinking scent coming from it, and just an overall bad kind of like outlook and attitude. Another thing that I've done working on my inner success is forgiving myself. Like, I'm a human being. Oftentimes I've done things, said things, or maybe just behave in a way that some people just didn't agree with or didn't think was right. And I used to spend a lot of time beating myself up about that. Oh my God, I can't believe I did that. Oh my God, I wonder what they thought about that. That's not what I meant. I can't believe they took it that way. I used to do a lot of that. Like, I always know what my intentions are, but if somebody takes it another way, I would just harp on the fact that they didn't receive it the way I intended it. And you know what? That's okay. Like, I can't go around, like, I'm not going to get it right every time. And if I just mess up on one and I lose one connection, or I mess up on one thing, I got to be okay with that. And through all of that, the last thing I have is just slowly stopping destructive patterns and behavior. Like, I think that we don't really realize that some of the things that we do, our choices, are leading to us not succeeding on the inside. So it doesn't matter how many fancy bags you post if you're not correcting some of these awful patterns that are having you maybe even buying these things to cover up the kind of sucky feelings that you may have. And how do I know this? Because I'm also guilty. But stopping the destructive patterns and behavior so that you can really succeed on the inside, because it does not matter what people think about what you have or what you're doing or where you've been. None of those things are parallel with happiness. They're not. And so I really just want to make sure, in a society of likes and shares and who likes me the most or who's more popular, that you're focusing on your inner success. Uh, Number two is that I am sure that the way that I love, how I love, what love is defined by me. It is not defined by um, it is not defined by statistics. It is not defined by Steve Harvey. It is not defined by whoever. It is not defined by these reality television people. It's just defined by me. And everybody wants to tell you what love is and how you should go about it, or what relationships are and how you should go about them. And there's just this perceived like getting to this point means you have succeeded. Getting to this point in a relationship with a person, marriage, child, blah, 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 on and on and on, means that you have succeeded in the relationship, when you have to define love on your own terms and relate to people on your own terms. And it's such a bummer that every time somebody goes on a date or meets somebody, and if you just have great conversation the first time, it's like you've already set the wedding date mentally, or you've already kind of ran the future on it and not really given things a chance to kind of blossom and unfold and kind of do things on your own time. And so that's what I was talking about in the last one, is like, I think that overall, that you have to stop obsessing over other people's perceived happiness. Like, you see the wedding photos, you see this, you see that, and I always see people say goals, and I'm like, you have no idea what those two people are going through. It's a photo. And so if you had an idea of what they were going through, it probably would change the way you related, or how quickly we give up, or how inflexible we tend to be when it comes to love relationships. And so I definitely know that, I love and relate on my own terms. And it's okay if people don't understand that. They don't understand, how you may relate to the opposite sex or the same sex, or however you choose to go through life, or that it doesn't have as much value to you as it has to them. Some things take more priority in other people's lives. But you can put it and slot it wherever you want to in your life. And it's like, sometimes if you find that it's consuming you, because I do get a lot of questions to my ask about, I've never been in a relationship, I've only been in one relationship, and it's almost like only being in one relationship at 23 is now a bad thing. And it's just like, it's okay, you are busy doing other things. So continue to define love on your own terms. Number three, I now know that I can't skip the gym. I learned that, like, it's just, exercise is probably one of the best things that I have become consistent about. Like, I don't always like it. I mostly hate it. But I have found that I'm just better for it. Like, across the board, like, I feel better. I look better. And it makes the aging process, like, not so gloomy. I did set a new goal, 450 minutes a week of exercise. So I read something in New York Times on their, like, health blog about how 450 minutes of exercise, which is basically like an hour a day, and it doesn't even have to be like crazy exercise, like just an hour a day of walking. I'm sure you all knew this. Um, Sort of, it decreases your mortality rate, or the time that you'll die. And it's like, I'm not afraid to die. I just think that sometimes if I can just work to make sure that I have a good quality of life longer while I'm young and able to do it, then I should. So still keep your health top of mind. Number four, breaks are necessary. So this year I had this thing where I was like, I'm not going to take as many breaks as I did last year. And I think that I need to find some middle ground. I needed more breaks because I could tell I took 2 weeks off of work, and now I'm like supercharged, ready to rock and roll. I have a 2 hour meeting scheduled with my crew this morning because it's time for us to get in gear. But a lot of you ask me, what can you do? And I think that if you can't afford a big vacation, because there was a time that I couldn't do that, do a staycation, get a luxury hotel, stay somewhere really beautiful, sexy, gather a couple of your good girlfriends and go stay at the St. Regis. So where you probably couldn't afford maybe one night by yourself or 2 nights, get a couple of your girls together and share a luxury room for a night or two. And I'm telling you, it's worth it. It's worth it. It's worth it. It's like the way the visuals and the service and all of that stuff is going to re-energize you. Like, it's like there's something about good service, good food, 5 star that gets me back going. So there's plenty of ways that you can work these kinds of things out. Number five, I definitely know this, is to keep pushing past my comfort zone. Like, I've got to keep pushing past my comfort zone, because things that were hard for me last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, they aren't hard anymore. And so it's like, this is not a time for me to coast just because I'm not experiencing difficulty in this area. So it's like, how am I going to push myself past some of the other things that I haven't been the most comfortable about? And so I'm working on it. I'm getting there. I'm excited about just growing and progressing. And if you all have birthdays coming up, I'd love to hear about them. You can still ask me questions on the Ask FM. I have about 115 questions that I need to go through. So my goal is to try to answer some of those every day. So if you want to check them out on the site, mytaughtyou.com, I'll be answering a lot of your questions. And thank you as always for all the birthday messages, all the support that you've given me. And I'm looking forward to doing more with you. Ciao.